To those who stay home a lot, this video is for you, because I have been that guy, and honestly, sometimes I still am. With this video, I want to do something different. I want to tell you a story, and it's a story that I think a lot of you can really relate to. I think it will make you feel less alone, and I'm hoping it can motivate you to change. If you're new here, my name is Louis, and the people that do know me will be surprised I'm making this video because, as douche as it sounds, the thing I was known for is being that bachelor type of guy, the dude who had the dating life that honestly I think 99% of men on the world would commit crimes to have this dating life, but it hasn't always been this way. And today I want to talk about back then, when everything was completely different. Everything started when I got to that age where I was supposed to turn from a boy into a man. An age that probably all of my viewers have passed, let's say around 13, you go into puberty, you start making testosterone, and you turn from a boy into a man. Now, unfortunately for me, things were slightly different. I had a rare biological condition that postponed my puberty, not for 1 or 2 or 3 years, but for about 6-7 years. So that means that what you looked like, when you were 13, that is what I looked like when I was 19, 20. So that is the first ingredient for the story of my youth that I'm about to share with you. A second ingredient was that I've always been a guy with a lot of fantasy, and I still am. This meant that when I was young, my mom said you were the easiest kid really to raise because you could just leave you in a room with some it could be Legos or Fisher Price, or later it would be Magic the Gathering cards, then it would turn into Warcraft 3, the computer game. But even when I was a little young, you could leave me alone with some toy and my fantasy would do the rest. I could play with that stuff for hours and hours, and I would need no social interaction. I was just happy by myself in my own little world. Combine that with me growing up in a shithole, and once I was going to high school, we moved to another shithole, which had about a population of 1,000 people, honestly, of which most were about to die. It was mostly old people. It was quite far away from everything. I grew up in Belgium. You're not allowed to have a driver's license before 18 as well. So I was kind of stuck in this mega boring village while I looked like a 10-year-old kid, even though I was already way older. And I think it comes to no surprise that when you put those ingredients together, it is very easy to become a quite isolated guy that just stays at home a lot. Now, of course, even though I live in a complete shithole and I'm a bit of a nerd, I still have to go to school, primary school, high school, later university. So technically, I could have a brimming social life and tons of the coolest friends and dating experiences. And I did have friends, and yes, they typically were other nerds, but I did not have a dating life at all. At TextGod and within my courses, I'm really strict on guys having to take responsibility for their own life and their own results. I hate excuses. Still, when it comes to my own situation, I'd say my excuse is 99% valid because I was so far behind biologically that it was impossible to date. For example, I once had a really popular girl and she did have a crush on me. I had a crush on her. We would text a lot. Big props to my sister, who was very cool in school, for being my wingman. But when push came to shove, I never made a move. And I guess that's on me. I was really scared of the whole flirting thing, but I also knew that this girl wanted to have sex with me. I knew that she really wanted to lose her virginity. I think we were about 16, 17, but I was terrified to death. I could just not go there. My body hadn't gone through puberty, so I know that it was physically impossible to do. And so I was kind of stuck in a permanent friend zone. And it is around that time that World of Warcraft was released. Me, a nerd with no dating life, stuck in my shithole village with all my nerdy friends. World of Warcraft, I counted down to the release so much. Every day I was in school, under my desk, I would just be reading the same articles, the same game previews over and over and over again. And when World of Warcraft released, I instantly started playing, and this became my life. Probably really relatable for a lot of you, but you get to build a brand new character. You get to be someone completely different. I was not cool in school at all. Being much smaller than all the guys, I had to be really careful not to get into altercations or fights because I would never be able to physically defend myself. All I had, and luckily I was quite good at, I had quick wit. I was funny. And that's how I could prevent being bullied and stuff. But I was not the cool alpha guy or whatever. In World of Warcraft, I could be that guy. And I became that guy. I'm not gonna go into specifics, but I was very, very high ranked in the player versus player scene. And I loved that feeling. And it's quite funny because when I think back of those times of that whole World of Warcraft era, even though I had 0 girlfriends, I never had sex, I never even kissed a girl, I would say I was pretty happy. It's really good times, and when I look back to them, I think it's one of the highest ranking times in my life, just because you wake up in the morning and you're happy to go out of bed. You know, you're never snoozing. You roll over, you open your eyes, you see the computer. I would hop out of bed in my underwear, launch the computer, log on. Social life in-game, it was there. I got a lot of respect because I was good at the game. No one really knew who I was, you know. I was just this little funny character with very good gear and a nice fancy title, and you got the respect. You got everything I lacked in real life, I got in game, so it felt really good. Combine that with the fact that you invest so much time in there, and then noticeably week after week you become even better, even stronger, even cooler. Needless to say, I was addicted as hell. But obviously, as fun as that life was, that giant band-aid that you put on your life, eventually it leads nowhere. You can only do it for so long, and later, in hindsight, you realize that the shorter this period would have been, the better. And so for me, that period ended when I was about to turn 23. I was done with uni, and I was in a big crisis, to be honest. I was feeling like complete shit. I was getting so lonely and so frustrated with having no dating life at all. And one thing I really liked doing is watching all the high school and college shows. It was, Gossip Girl, 90210, VOC, One Tree Hill, Entourage, all those shows. And all of them take place in the States, and it's always, you see this brimming social life and the dates happening. And I was like, oh man, I just wish I had that, I was part of that life. Maybe if I grew up in the States, even then I would be so far behind biologically, but that's pretty much my dream. And my puberty had set in late at around 19, but now I'm about 23, so I have changed a lot. And I decided I'm done with school. I'm going to take the very little savings that I have. I think it was about $3,000 that I gathered. I'll fly to America, and then I'll finally be happy. Maybe it was a bit of an act of desperation. Might sound foolish to you, but honestly, it kind of worked. I met a lot of people, partly because I was so broke. I figured the only way I could stay there for 3 months is I had to do couch surfing. So I was always meeting new people to sleep on their couch. And then I had the advantage that I was the foreigner. I was the exotic guy from Belgium. And wow, he speaks French. They found that really cool in the States. And so I met a lot of people, and I noticed that the girls were quite interested in me. And eventually, even during the trip, I lost my virginity. 3 important things are at play here. The first one I already mentioned. I was the foreigner. I had that exotic vibe. The second one is that the image that I thought people had of me, or maybe they really had of me back home, people didn't know who I was in the States. So I wasn't held back. I didn't feel maybe a subconscious pressure to act and behave the way that was expected of me. I could be someone new. That was a second important thing. Also, very important, I was like, if I'm gonna go to the States and I'm gonna use the little amount of money that I have, I better not be playing World of Warcraft there all the time. So I decided to not play World of Warcraft during this trip. And that was a golden move because it made me be more social, made me go out of the house more. And after my USA trip, I never touched World of Warcraft again. And I have never touched it ever since. If you're a fellow gamer or ex-gamer, you could see it as me going from Europe to the States. And it was kind of like migrating from one World of Warcraft server to another. where I could create a brand new character and I could try brand new professions, brand new hobbies, learn completely new skills than anything that I had done back home. So long story short, I think that period was the most life-changing moment for me. 3 months in the States, lost my virginity, went back home, and honestly, coming back home, it sucked. I remember sitting at my desk behind my computer in my 1,000 inhabitant shitty hometown, and I felt so empty. I had just had a taste of a way better life, a life with much more connection and meeting people and doing fun stuff and getting some attention from the other sex. And now I was stuck home again, and that's when I really realized, oh man, something needs to change. Like I just can't go back to what it was before. Thank God for the internet, because I discovered that there is a thing called pickup. Apparently I could learn to flirt better and to seduce women. And back then it was quite primitive. Pretty much the one thing out there was mystery method, which is you just learn a couple routines and sentences by heart and you play the same little theater over and over and over again. But it's a little piece of theater that is just so well thought of that people will like you. And I tried experimenting with it and I could see how it could work. Later, I'd find out that this is not the way to go. But back then it was a start and I was in heaven. I was like, wow, I can learn this. There is a way out of my shitty life. I discovered the best thing ever and I shared it with the friends that I had in Belgium. And to my great surprise, none of them were really interested. Like some were not interested at all. I could hardly fathom it. I had one friend who was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I want to learn this with you, but he dropped off rather soon. And of course it makes sense. None of them had this massive pain from not having had a dating life throughout all of high school and all of college. So they didn't care as much because they've already had girlfriends, they had flings and so on. None of my friends were interested and I was alone again, but at least I knew that there was a way out. That's when I did some more searching and then I found online communities. That was the next big thing for me. I discovered that there are these communities online with like-minded people that all want to learn the same thing, much like the one I am hosting right now. And there was a lot of guys in the States doing this. There was a lot of guys doing this in big cities like London. But where I was living in Belgium, it seemed like it was almost non-existing. But on one forum, I found one really dedicated guy. He was posting a lot. He was a moderator on the forum, so he seemed like a big deal. Him and I got in contact and we sort of became online buddies. We decided to meet up in real life. And that is when stuff really popped off. It was so good to find a community online where the guys, they really understood me. I felt understood. They were also struggling. They also had a dating life they were not happy about at all. We could exchange stories. We could exchange what we were learning. It's like in the gaming world when you have a clan where you really feel at home and you just create this deep friendship kind of with strangers online. But as I said, one of them became a real life friend and we would go out every day. We were so set on changing this part of our life. We would go do day game every day. We would go do night game, say about 5 nights per week. As soon as Tinder came around in 2013, I would instantly start doing that and never stopped. And then through this guy, I met more guys that were into this, and then the whole scene became a bit more popular and I met more guys. And then I would go to workshops abroad in Germany, in the Netherlands. We never had any in Belgium, but I would go to these neighboring countries to learn more and meet the coaches, and there I made more friends, and soon all my best friends were these guys that had the same interests as me, that were on the same mission as me. And then it was only a matter of time. From being a really lonely guy with no dating life at all, I became better and better and better and better, pretty much climbing the ranks all the way to the top. And I did anything I could to become better at this. So one thing I really struggled with is the infamous approach anxiety. You guys know how scary it can be to approach a beautiful woman that you see on the street. So besides doing my daily approaches, I would take up one of those annoying sales guy jobs, you know, for these NGOs where You wear a little funny vest, you're on the street, you approach random strangers and you try to get them to give their money to support a good cause. So I would do that just to force myself to approach strangers all the time, every day, and really desensitize myself to this, making contact with strangers. While doing all this, I would post on the forums, I would share what I learned, I would ask questions, I would connect with as many people as possible. And through being so active in one of the communities, I got offered an internship by one of the coaches. So I started working for him for free, which I did not complain about at all because I was learning, I was loving the work. Eventually another company offered me a paid job as a coach, so now suddenly I was a dating coach. And in hindsight, it's crazy to me, but my life completely flipped around by going on this dating journey. And becoming better at dating then made me realize I should probably become better at a whole bunch of other things, especially now that I was gonna work as a dating coach. So I bought copywriting books, I started summarizing them. I remember my favorite copywriting book, I highlighted everything, then I made a 20,000 word summary, then I just studied the summary, then I would get another book. I would watch the other coaches for the company that I was working for, how are they doing their videos, I would ask them to mentor me, they taught me everything they knew. So I was leveling up my copywriting, my video creating, all while of course keeping approaching day game, night game, online game, blah, blah, blah. And then after I've been a coach for them for a couple years, one of the founders of the company asked me if we could start a new company together, something that I first refused to do. They asked me again later, I refused again. Well, as you can see right now, the company exists, it's TextGod. I think we've coached about 1,000 guys by now, like intense coaching, and many more thousands have bought simpler courses and stuff. So I'm very happy at the impact we made, but most of all, if we focus on my journey, I think it's so crazy to look back from how far I came from just completely clueless, really frustrated, really late with everything, and then the journey to now. And as I said in another video that I recently made, that whole period, that painful period where you decide you're gonna do the journey and you start leveling up, and you get rejected a lot, and there's very many painful moments. Also along the way, I lost some of my best friends that just couldn't stand me anymore because I was all about this dating thing. I understand, but all of those things, you know, it is for sure, I'm 100% sure that when I die and I'm gonna look back to this, that'll be one of the most glorious times where you decide to take control and you go out there and you risk constantly getting rejected, having to change yourself. It's a painful process, but it is so good. All in all, I think I'm still much of the same person. Of course, I know how to do dating. I've become way more social. I've learned how to dress myself, how to take care of myself, go to the gym, blah, 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 learn business skills. I'm still the guy who likes to stay home a lot. Once I've done all this partying and stuff, I've had it. I don't like it anymore. I spend a lot of my free time laying on the couch, watching a show I really like. Right now, I'm rewatching Entourage for the so manyth time. Just like back then, before I had any of that life, I still really like it. Now I just have a really nice girlfriend who watches it with me. I guess the message I'm trying to share with you is you don't have to be dishonest toward yourself. Like the core you that's in there, that guy can just be there. It's about going out of your comfort zone, as cliche as it sounds, learning new skills and learning to, in an honest way, show that core of you. Learning to present it in a shameless way. Easier said than done, but you can definitely do it. I could do it. All the guys that I met on the journey that are now my best friends, they've all managed to do it. And yeah, I've seen about 1,000 guys do it now over the last 5 years that I've had this company. It gives so much satisfaction to see the guys go from a really unhappy place to a much better place. To be honest with you, I kind of lost my train of thought. I had only written down a few bullets for this video, which is very much unlike my usual videos where I tell you, here's 5 steps to do this type of thing with texting, or here how to meet this type of girl. Here I'm just sharing my story because I learned that a lot of people weren't really aware of it, and not that you have to know my story, but I think it can be really motivating to some of you, especially when you come to a channel like this and you see a coach and, oh wow, he has a nice dating life, good for him. I could do it too if I were this good looking, or yeah, I'm sure you're rich, whatever the excuses are. it's been a really long way to get here from... Man, I didn't even tell you guys. I wasn't only behind physically, I was also dirt poor, and I lived in a garage box with no internet, no heating, no shower. It cost me $100 per month to live in that box. That's about as much as I could afford. It was somewhere in the outskirts of the city. That's where I learned game from. And when I took girls home from the club, it was to my little shitty garage box, which, by the way, never was a problem, which shows again how important all the wealth is. As long as it was good vibes and the girls liked you, it was just a fun adventure. Anyway, I digress. My main point with this video is that I hope for at least some guys it maybe makes you feel a little bit more understood, makes you feel a little less lonely, or in best case it motivates you that you can do this too, just like I did, and pretty much all of my best friends that I met at these workshops or met in these communities, they all flipped it around, and you can do the same. And if you will allow me, I'll gladly help you out. I have programs, no pressure. If you don't want to do them or you have no money, completely fine too. Watch some videos. I would definitely recommend to go on my newsletter. I think that's one of the things I'm most proud of. There's a lot of stories there about my own journey and the things I learned from them, but also the stories and the learnings of my clients. I get a lot of good feedback on the emails, so give them a try. Download any of the free things that I list in the bio or the comments, and then you'll be on the mailing list automatically. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this different type of video, me sharing a little bit more about myself. If you like it, maybe smash the like button so I can get an idea whether you guys appreciate this type of story or you would just like the more regular type of videos where I give you 5 tips to get your crush over text with spicy Tinder lines. Anyway, as usual, thank you for your time. I love you very much. See you in another video.